people of the internet. How are you doing today? My name is Jackie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So this is a very impromptu video. I originally wasn't going to post this. However, I was thinking about my predictions going into the upcoming episode of Game of Thrones. Episode 3 is going to be the Battle at Winterfell with the living against the dead. And I was thinking that in my recap of episode 2, I could have talked about my predictions for episode 3 a little bit more, and there were more things that I thought of later that I wanted to say. So basically the premise of this video is that I'm going to be sharing who I think is going to live and who I think is going to die in this upcoming episode, with a few other random predictions thrown in at the end. So I am going to be breaking up the Game of Thrones characters into 4 categories. Almost certainly surviving, almost certainly dying, maybe dying, and could die, but I don't think so. So even though a lot of people are probably going to die in this episode, I think the core main cast members are most definitely going to survive. Someone like Jon Snow, Daenerys Targaryen, any of the Stark siblings, they could die at some point during this season, yes, but I don't think they're going to get killed off in episode 3. I think they still have a lot of storyline left in them. I really think the characters that are going to get killed off in this episode are going to be recurring cast members or members of the secondary main cast. Characters where we still have some sort of relationship or attachment to them, but they don't have a larger plot in the storyline going forward. And obviously there are also some characters who are safe just because they're not going to be anywhere near the battle. Someone like Cersei Lannister, Euron Greyjoy, the Mountain, Yara Greyjoy, they're not going to be anywhere near Winterfell when this battle is taking place. So because of that, we probably won't even see them in the episode at all, and they'll probably survive. That's kind of interesting to me. Are we going to go 2 whole episodes without seeing Cersei? I mean, I don't know. I feel like this episode has to take place entirely at Winterfell. But it's also kind of weird to me that we just go 2 episodes without seeing any Cersei. So now we are sadly going on to the characters who I think are almost certainly dying. Like I said, I think a lot of the characters who are going to die are going to be recurring characters, major recurring characters, or secondary main cast members. So people who the show can go on without them. They really have served the narrative purpose, but we're still attached to them, so we'll still be sad when they die. And the first person who I think is almost definitely dying is, sadly, Podrick Payne. I love Pod. Pod is great. Pod is so cute. He's such a loyal squire to Brienne, but I just really think that he is one of those emotional deaths that can really hit us on the heartstrings without negatively affecting the overall storyline in any way. And also with how much screen time Pod really got in this last episode, seeing him singing, we see that his skills with swordsmanship are improving. I think that is a sign that he is probably going to get killed off soon. Gwendoline Christie, who plays Brienne of Tarth, also posted on her Instagram a post about how much she has loved working with Daniel Portman, who plays Podrick Payne. And when I read that post, it just, to me, it felt like a goodbye. And I just think at this point, Podrick's probably going. I also think that Dolorous Edd from The Night's Watch is another major recurring character who could be one of those emotional kills. That scene between him, Jon Snow, and Samwell Tarly in episode 2 of season 8 really just felt to me like it was the last time we were going to see these 3 characters together. Edd doesn't serve a major purpose in the narrative, but because we've seen him on the show for so many years, we as viewers are attached to him as Jon and Sam's friend, so if he dies, that can get an emotional response from the viewers. I also definitely think that either Grey Worm or Melisandre have to die. I really like Grey Worm and Melisandre's romance, but last episode, sort of like I said with Edd, their scenes together just felt like the end to me. Seeing them discuss about how after the wars they were going to go to Noth together and start a new life, it just clued me into the fact that new life is never going to get to happen. They are not going to get a happy ending together. And I think it's much more likely that Grey Worm will die because Grey Worm is a soldier. He is going to put himself in harm's way. He's going to be on the battlefield. So I think it's much more likely that he dies, but I guess you really can't say that it won't be Melisandre, because just because it's more likely that it's Grey Worm doesn't mean they couldn't surprise us and have it actually be Melisandre who dies instead. I also think that the death of Grey Worm and or Melisandre could contribute to Daenerys' storyline, because I think the show really wants us to see her as in this position where she feels like she doesn't have a lot of people that she can trust. She's been estranged from a lot of her advisors. She has this new rift with Jon after finding out that basically she has no claim to the Iron Throne, that everything she's dedicated her life for is a lie. So I think by killing off Grey Worm or Melisandre, two of the people who she cares about the most and trusts the most, that could add some more angst to her storyline. So I could see why the writers would want to kill one of them off at this point in the season. I also think it is very, very likely that Theon Greyjoy might die in episode 3. Now, before the season premiered, I thought that Theon was going to die saving his sister Yara from their uncle Euron. However, that's not what happened. Theon did save Yara in episode 1 and then come back to Winterfell. However, I kind of felt stupid for not thinking about the possibility that Theon might want to redeem himself by protecting Bran. Because back in season 2, I believe it was, Theon did take Winterfell from Bran and Rickon, and he would have killed them if he had caught them. So by protecting Bran now, Theon can atone for his past transgressions. And I think if Theon died protecting Bran, that would really be a powerful and emotional moment for his character. This would really cement his redemption arc. Now that Theon has made it up to his sister and also made it up to the Starks, his character can die a hero having completed his arc. I also think that little girl with the scar on her face that reminded Davos of Shireen in episode 2 is probably going to die. I have some thoughts about what's going to go on with the crypts, but we're going to get to that at the end of the video when I talk about other random theories I have. I definitely think that the show might want to hit us with the emotional death of this little girl who reminds us all so much of sweet Shireen. I just got a thought that scares me. I didn't think that I had to be worried about Davos. I've always kind of felt like Davos is going to survive this show, but I just wondered, what if Davos dies saving the life of this little girl like he couldn't save Shireen? Oh my god, if that happened, I would cry. I sound like I'm going to cry right now just talking about it. No! Davos has to live. He's Dadvos. He's basically Jon and Gendry's adopted dad. Who's gonna be the honorary grandpa to the Daenerys and Gendry babies if he's not around? Guys, Davos can't die. He's too pure, too good. Okay, well, I just continue to have an internal crisis thinking about the possibility that Davos might get killed off. Let's move on to maybe dying. I definitely think we're going to see a prominent side character get killed. I don't know if this is going to be Lyanna Mormont, Alys Karstark, or maybe Jon Royce. These are characters that we know and that we've seen for several episodes, but they're also kind of expendable, so I feel like any one of them could easily be killed. I did notice that Alys Karstark was at the strategy session they were having in episode 2, which makes me wonder if maybe it's going to be her. But I feel like any one of these three could probably get killed off. Now, here I have two characters together, the Hound and also Beric Dondarrion, and let me explain. So in the A Song of Ice and Fire book series, Beric Dondarrion has actually been dead since book 3, because in the books he uses this power called the Last Kiss, or the Kiss of Life, to bring back Catelyn Stark. But he's waited too long to bring her back, so she hasn't come back the same. It's this whole thing. So why is the show still keeping Beric alive? I think that perhaps Beric will use the Kiss of Life or the Last Kiss on somebody else in the show. Obviously, this will only be a show plot line, but I think it would explain why Beric is still around even though his book counterpart got killed off so long ago. I think the most likely person for Beric to use the Last Kiss on is the Hound. I have a whole theory video on this, but to sum it up really quickly for those of you who have already seen that video or just don't want to watch it, I guess that's valid. Maybe you just don't want to watch that video. We really have seen this relationship between Beric, the Hound, and also Thoros when he was still alive being built up, where they showed the Hound a vision in the flames. And then this past episode, we had that scene with the Hound, Arya, and Beric. And I feel like that means in this episode, perhaps the Hound could fall in battle, and Beric could decide to use the last kiss so that the Hound can fulfill his destiny of killing his brother. Beric could, I guess, use the last kiss on someone other than the Hound. I guess he could use it on either Arya or Gendry if one of them were to die, because he kind of does owe them one. He kidnapped Arya and tried to sell her for ransom, and he did sell Gendry to Melisandre, so he does kind of owe them one, and reviving one of them could be a way to make up for what he did. However, I just think the Hound makes the most sense and is the one that has been foreshadowed the most. Another character who might die but might not is Jorah Mormont. I definitely think that Jorah is going to die this season. I think he's going to end up sacrificing himself for Daenerys in some way, his beloved Khaleesi. I just don't know if that's going to be this episode or not. I'm inclined to say not, because obviously some deaths are going to have to be saved for episode 5 when they probably are going to have the battle in King's Landing. And I feel like Jorah might be alive for now but then die later. It is possible he could die this week, though. I'm just more inclined to say that it'll be episode 5. Then we have Varys. Now we know Varys is going to die in season 8 because Melisandre told him he was going to have to die in Westeros. I just don't know if he's going to die in episode 3 or not. Melisandre said that he has to die in Westeros, so I feel like Varys' death needs to be like a moment. It needs to be really significant, and I feel like him just being murdered by a white isn't really like the ending that I imagined for him. It could happen, I just feel like he's going to die a different way. Also, when you think about it, Varys really hasn't had much to do in the first 2 episodes of this season, so I feel like killing him in episode 3 would just not really have any emotional impact at this point. Finally, Tormund is a character that I could really see going either way. I could see him surviving the entire series or getting killed off. I feel like either is a possibility, honestly. And I do think it's a possibility that he could die in episode 3 after all the screen time he got in episode 2. However, I really don't feel strongly either way. I feel like his storyline could go either way at this point. There is someone playing rap music really loudly, and it's really distracting, and I hate rap music, and I want to go ask them to turn it down, but I hate confrontation. So let's see how long I can endure it before I lose my mind. Okay, and now we're moving on to the category of they could die, but I personally don't think so. These are characters that I've seen a lot of people be really worried about going into this episode, though I personally think they're probably going to live, even if there's a chance they might die. The first of these is Brienne of Tarth. So last episode we saw Brienne be knighted in what was honestly probably one of my favorite Game of Thrones scenes ever. It was an amazing moment, so amazingly performed by Gwendolyn Christie. And some people are afraid that now that she's been knighted, her arc is complete, that she doesn't serve a purpose anymore. However, I don't feel like Brienne is going to die. I honestly feel like Brienne's probably gonna live through this entire series. I think she's still gonna be alive at the end. And even if they were going to kill her, I don't think they would do it at this point because she hasn't done that much in the season yet. In the first episode, she didn't even have any lines, I don't think. She was just standing there behind Sansa and sitting in the Great Hall, and she didn't say anything. I don't feel like they're gonna kill her in this episode when she's barely gotten any screen time yet this season. I mean, she got a great moment last episode, but would they have really just had her sit there in the first episode doing nothing if they knew she was gonna die in episode 3? I don't think so. A lot of people are also worried about Jaime Lannister, and while I do think that Jaime is unfortunately probably going to die at some point in the season, I don't think he's going to die in episode 3. I think there are still possibilities for his storyline that will extend his lifeline in the show a little bit. I really think that Jaime is going to have to be the one to kill Cersei. Now, the Valonqar prophecy is only in the books, but I think that Jaime killing Cersei is the most satisfying narrative possibility. Honestly, I would be disappointed if anyone killed kills Cersei but Jaime. And I think after Jaime kills Cersei in episode 5, probably, he's gonna die in Brienne's arms, the arms of the woman he loves. I don't think either of these characters are gonna die in episode 3 because they've had such little interaction. Oh! My hand gesture just knocked my pen off. This video is a shit show. So anyway, to make a long story short, I just think there's so many more things that Jaime is gonna have to do before he gets killed off. Also, the other Starks don't even know that he pushed Bran yet. Certainly that reveal has to happen, right? I think a lot of people are worried about Jaime because Bran says to him, how do you know there is an after and after the battle? So people were like, oh, maybe that means Jaime's gonna get killed in the Battle of Winterfell. But honestly, if they were gonna kill Jaime in the Battle of Winterfell, would they have made it that obvious? And the last person on this list, another character that everyone was really worried about after episode 2, Gendry. Now, I gotta be honest, at first, I was really worried about Gendry too. I was accidentally spoiled on the Arya Gendry sex scene. I saw it on Tumblr, and after I saw that spoiler, I thought, well, for sure that means Gendry's dying in episode 3 if the two of them are gonna get together so early in the season. But after watching their scene together, it didn't feel like the end to me. I feel like that scene left open a lot of possibilities for future moments between them. And I feel like if they were gonna kill Gendry this week, they wouldn't have had Arya and Gendry's last scene together be like that. Had the two of them confessed their undying love and said they were going to spend the rest of their lives together, I would have thought, yep, Gendry's dying. But really, there's so many more possibilities for where the two of them could go that I feel like it would almost be bad storytelling to kill Gendry right now. I think there's more dramatic possibilities with him living than dying. Arya and Gendry have sex thinking they're going to die tomorrow, so if the two of them both survive, then they're gonna have to have a conversation about what their night together really meant. And I also think Gendry is a core part of Arya's ongoing storyline this season. I think Arya has to feel again. She has to allow herself to once again be emotionally vulnerable. Arya has shut herself off from emotions as a defense mechanism, and now being back with her family and reconnecting with Gendry, she's beginning to feel things again, and I think that's going to be an ongoing internal conflict for her. Also, in the more practical side of things, apparently Joe Dempsey, who plays Gendry, filmed season 8 for about 8 months, and I don't think he would have needed 8 months to film if he was only going to be in 3 episodes. That's a lot of filming time. Also, I don't know if you guys watch the Game Revealed featurettes they post on YouTube the day after the episodes. If you don't, you should really watch them. They have lots of interesting behind the scenes information, and it's amazing to me how much detail people put into this show. It's so interesting to me. But in Joe Dempsey's interviews in those featurettes, he's been wearing a costume that we haven't seen Gendry wear yet. So I feel like that means he's going to live past episode 3, because why would they put him in a new costume just to sit there and film an interview with the camera? Also, I'm pretty sure that when he's talking from Sevilla, which I guess that doesn't necessarily mean he filmed in the Dragon Pit, because I think some cast members were just filming for the documentary that's coming out in Sevilla. But just on that practical side of things, I don't think Gendry's going to die, at least not in episode 3. Okay, and this is actually a great transition to some of the random odds and ends that I want to talk about, some theories circulating around the internet right now that I wanted to address. Now, after this Arya Gendry sex scene, which generated so much unnecessary controversy, I think the scene was really important for Arya's character and very tastefully done. Maisie did an interview talking about it, and she said that the writers let her decide how much she wanted to show. I thought the scene was perfectly appropriate, and I don't understand why people are more troubled by an 18-year-old girl having consensual sex with the guy she's had a crush on for years than committing mass murder. But now I'm going on a tangent. Anyway, so after the two of them had sex, I've seen a lot of people on Tumblr and Twitter wondering if Arya could possibly have gotten pregnant from that encounter. Yeah, I guess it's possible, because in Westeros, they don't really have birth control. They can drink moon tea. However, you know, did Arya drink moon tea after having sex with Gendry? She may not have, because maybe she thought, I'm gonna die tomorrow anyway, so preventing pregnancy doesn't matter, but I honestly don't think she's going to get pregnant. I don't see that for her character. If we do see Arya and Gendry have kids, I think that would be in an epilogue flash forward in the series finale. I don't think she's going to be pregnant during the war. Just because we don't see a character take birth control on screen doesn't mean they didn't do it. I mean, on other shows set in the modern day, you don't watch a main female character take her pill every month. You just assume that they're using protection. And you know, even if she didn't drink moon tea, they could have pulled out, which is not the most effective method of birth control. If you are a modern day viewer out there having sexual relations who does not want to get pregnant, let me tell you, the pull-out method is not effective. Use the pill or condoms or some other method, just so you know. But I also think that Daenerys is probably going to be pregnant with Jon's child. It was so heavily foreshadowed in season 7. They were constantly drilling into the audience's head, like they want us to question Daenerys's infertility. And Cersei is supposedly pregnant. Maybe she had a miscarriage, maybe she's going to have a miscarriage, but I think 2 pregnancy storylines is already enough for 1 season. I don't think Arya would need to get pregnant too. I mean, we can't impregnate every single female character on Game of Thrones. That would be too many pregnancies. So the only way I could see Arya being pregnant is if Gendry does die in episode 3. Because if he does die in episode 3 and Arya was pregnant, that would mean that her baby is the last person of the Baratheon bloodline. And the last thing that I want to discuss in this video is the crypts. Now, I had never been a fan of this really popular theory that the Night King is going to raise the dead Starks from the crypts, because in my mind, it does not make sense. I mean, all of the Starks that have been down there for so long that I feel like there's probably not that much left to raise at this point. However, in this episode, it was constantly, episode 2 I mean, it was constantly brought up how the crypts were a safe place. And that made me suspicious because they kept bringing it up. And I think that's a narrative technique to drill into our heads that the crypts are safe, so then next episode, they will end up not being safe. And what just happened to my lighting again? Why is this video falling apart? Come back. However, I will still say that I don't think any of the Starks from the time of Game of Thrones are gonna come back on, because I don't know if Ned's bones ever made it to Winterfell, and Robb and Catelyn's certainly did not. I do not think the Freys sent them back to Winterfell. I think they probably just, well, in the books they threw Catelyn into the river, and I don't know what they did with Robb, but they definitely did not give them a respectful burial in Winterfell. And then Rickon, I feel like Rickon's body would be fresh enough that he could come back as a white. However, like, would Jon have buried Rickon without burning him first? Because he knows, like, the Night King can bring people back. So if Rickon does come back as a white, that's a failure on Jon's part. Then Jon should have known better. So guys, those are my thoughts on who is going to die in Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 3. Let me know in the comments, who do you think is going to get killed off in this episode? Who do you think we may see resurrected as a white? And who do you think is going to survive to fight another day? Let me know in the comments. I am excited for this episode, but also terrified, because after this episode, like, a lot of characters that I like are gonna be dead, because I am so emotionally attached to pretty much every Game of Thrones character. That's part of the reason why I love this show so much, because usually when I watch a show, I have a couple characters that I really like and everybody else really just doesn't matter to me. But on this show, I love everyone and I don't want anyone to die, so I know I'm going to be emotionally devastated. I might cry. I hope not too badly, because my roommate will be in the room while I'm watching it and I don't want her to see me weep like a baby. But anyways, guys, that is it for the video. I will be back with a recap and review, a breakdown of the new episode on Monday, hopefully. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see my Game of Thrones content for the rest of the season. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, and I'll see you next time.